Now, just a little warning before we get started that there will be major spoilers in this video for Spider-Man No Way Home, so if you have not seen it yet and you don't want anything from this movie ruined, it is a really good time to click away. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is a joint review with my wife, and if you've been wondering what has happened to my Marvel reviews, I now do them with her over on my other channel, but this time for this movie we figured we'd bring it back over here. The first thing I want to say is that sometimes movies get so hyped up that it is impossible to live up to the hype. I mean, it gets blown out of proportion. It's happened before with a film like, perhaps The Force Awakens, The Phantom Menace back in the day, maybe Endgame. You hype it up so much that it's just no way it could live up to that. This was the rare exception where it's actually better than the hype.
Right. I agree. I mean, Kevin Feige put out that warning, guys, watch your hype levels.
Yeah,
but I think that was a total, misdirect, because I don't care how hyped you were for this movie, this still exceeded that.
This was, we just got done seeing it, so I don't want to say the best superhero movie ever. I don't want to get crazy, but
you can say that.
This might be the best superhero movie I've ever seen.
I think this is one of the... I think it's the best movie. I'm going to say it's the best movie that Marvel has put out there.
The best in the MCU, or the best Marvel movie?
I feel like it is.
Are you saying all of Marvel?
I feel like it's the best MCU movie.
I won't disagree with you right now.
It blows the Sony Spider-Man movies out of the water. Although this is Sony.
This is still Sony. I don't know which...
the other Sony Spider-Man movies
the other
out of the
two
water.
Spider-Man...
yeah.
Which showed up in this film.
This might have been the greatest superhero movie I've ever seen.
That's what I'm saying. I usually don't gush over films or anything in my reviews, because when I want people to know when I gush about something, it really impressed me, and I'm going to gush about this film.
The floodgates have opened, people.
It is. This was at floodgates opened in my eyes, I think, in this movie a couple times too.
To see the kind of movie that they could put out, it blew me away.
Yeah, I don't even know where do you start with this movie. I mean, I'll say that, I did a video just yesterday talking about the marketing campaign for this film, and I'm like, oh, did they ruin too much? And no, they didn't, because it would have been incredible to have no idea what this film was like going into it, and all of a sudden, you got Doc Ock showing up, and you got, all these things happening, and you're like, you would just be utterly blown away. And I knew 99% certainty that Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, I knew these things were happening. So if you go into this movie blind, you'd probably just be speechless.
Here's one complaint.
Ooh, okay.
The complaint is, with Marvel as big as it is, if you haven't seen other movies, this movie wasn't as spectacular for you.
That's what I was wondering.
If you don't know the history that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire have with their villains,
that's the one
you're not going to get as much emotional impact out of this. I'm not saying you won't have some, but the redemption arc that these characters were given in this movie was glorious.
Well, that's the one thing I was curious about. I mean, I'm in my 40s. I remember Andrew Garfield Spider-Man a few years ago. I remember Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. These stories are I even like the Andrew Garfield the Amazing Spider-Man. I know a lot of people don't. I don't hate them like some people do. I thought Tobey Maguire's third movie, maybe not as good as the second one, but my point is, I do think knowing those films and knowing the stories of those Spider-Mans, because they get resolution in this movie. It's so cool that
oh my gosh, that is amazing. I mean, we saw in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trilogy how he pained and hurt over what had happened to him, what had happened to his loved ones, what happened to that his villains died, and you saw him save them. And what it brought to him and the joy it brought to him. We know now that we had a resolution with Mary Jane, and
It was kind of funny to see those two Spider-Men get resolutions, and you feel like, their story, you get this sigh of relief, like, they get this happy ending, right?
Andrew Garfield saving Mary Jane in the exact fashion that Gwen Stacy
that might have been my favorite part of the movie, actually. I know not everybody's favorite Spider-Man is Andrew Garfield, but just that was an incredible moment, yeah. But no way, you get these two Spider-Men get their ultimate resolution, it feels like, and then our Tom Holland Spider-Man is like probably worse off than he's like, nobody knows who he is. He's at his aunt's grave, and Happy's like, how did you know her?
Don't even talk about that. I was trying my hardest not to cry in the theater.
I think you cried about 10 times during this movie.
Twice during Aunt May's passing and then the funeral. But that's how you know the movie was so good.
So emotional, yeah. Especially again if you knew these previous Spider-Mans if you've grown up loving them, I think this is the ultimate movie for you.
And the resolution to the villains was also fantastic.
Yeah.
Flint, all he wanted is to get home to his daughter, and he can now. Spider-Man in that universe, in that time where they pulled him out of, didn't have to kill him. He turned back to normal. He's great. Same with Dr. Octopus. He was, at the precipice when he was pulled out, he was about to kill Spider-Man, and we know that his arms had taken over, and he doesn't have that problem anymore. I loved seeing the redemption. Jamie Foxx's Electro. As soon as he got his body back, my brain went, somehow his body has returned. Sorry, that's meme material forever, honestly.
That is. Yeah, is it a perfect movie in terms of you can't find any plot holes or anything? No, I'm sure if you wanted to fine-tooth comb this thing, you could find plenty of things that doesn't make...
Curious,
sure.
Yeah, what universe the Spider-Men are going back to if these characters resolve and don't die.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about, because they are going to go back...
It's like they get a do-over.
Yeah.
That those Spider-Men no longer have to fall into those pits where they have to kill their enemy. That's the real question, isn't it?
Because they all come from different times in the same universe. So... What is it? Do they each go back to kind of their own? Is the TVA going to show up and nuke each of these timelines now because they're...
The TVA is a fallacy now.
I know. I'm joking, but that was one thing that popped in my head. Like, well, what universes do they... Because they all can't go back to the same one because it wouldn't line up anymore.
No.
Yeah.
No, they all go back to a new multiverse because they're all variants now.
They're all variants. Yeah, exactly. So in a way...
So they've literally now get to live their best lives in their own universes. So in a
way, Loki
Spider-Man
answers...
go back knowing that there was a resolve, even though it doesn't exist in their universe.
Yeah, so Loki kind of actually answers how this would work. Well, they'll all go back to they'll all go back to that moment, and then they'll split into a different...
It's because they're making all of Marvel required reading.
You could make that argument. Yes, I know this movie doesn't require, but it certainly helps if you know previous Spider-Mans. But when we are this deep into Marvel now, it's probably hard for somebody who doesn't really keep up with everything to just follow along with everything.
Yeah.
Even somebody who watches everything and has seen most of the movies multiple times. Even I'm still like, what? Wait, how does this line up?
Moving on to the soundtracks. Oh my God, so many reminiscent soundtracks. You had the original. You had Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man theme, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man theme. You heard the Electro theme, Doc Ock's theme was in there. I was what a lovely collage of music. I'm hoping somebody somewhere puts a compilation together for me of all of it.
And this is how you bring back the preview. This is how you do, kind of nostalgia. This is how you bring back characters from that people have a deep love and understanding of. This is how you do it. They did justice to all of these characters.
Right. They aren't throwing aside the Sony movies going, they're not really the Spider-Man in the MCU. No, they're all canon MCU Spider-Man now.
Yeah,
it's all Spider-Man multiverse.
Yeah, that's all in the same MCU now, which is kind of cool.
It is cool.
Even Venom is now, we knew that after Venom 2, but...
But it was cool to see him show up again in another post-credit scene and then end up going back. I was hoping he was going to stay, but he did leave a little piece of himself behind.
He left a little bit behind, yeah.
Which I'm hoping... takes on his personality in a way.
I don't think so. I think somehow in the next Spider-Man trilogy, it finds Tom Holland at his absolutely lowest point right now, where he's all alone.
Peter Parker, all alone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I also like the callbacks to some of the they didn't come off as cheesy. Sometimes you can put a callback and it just you roll your eyes, but I'm something of a scientist myself. I couldn't help it. That was awesome too. I was chuckling.
No, they were smart with the scripting. They didn't have them repeat all their lines, but they did.
There was a couple,
here and there, just enough to make everyone smile. Our audience that we watched it with, it was packed house on a Friday afternoon. Noon.
Yeah,
our audience clapped.
Yeah,
when and Andrew Garfield showed up. Clapped again when Tobey Maguire came out. Audience all clapping at the end of a movie. That's how you know this movie pleased people.
Yeah,
it was something everyone wanted to see, even with its bittersweet ending.
It does have a very bittersweet ending because, like I said, you get the resolution for the previous two Spider-Mans. You feel good about them. But and then Tom Holland's Spider-Man, our Peter Parker in the main MCU is...
Oh, my God.
Yeah, everything is at its lowest.
But it's great because you're seeing the resolution for him. You're seeing that he didn't let that angerness and that bitterness change him. He almost did.
That was another great part of the movie.
But his sacrifice at the end. He gave up his identity.
He gave up everything. He gave up his
life. Not only people don't know I'm not Spider-Man. People don't know him.
People don't know Peter Parker
He's
anymore.
literally
See, I didn't know it was
lost
going
his
to be
entire self.
I didn't know it was going to be quite that extreme. I figured
When he
people
said
would
it,
forget
I knew that's what it was.
I mean, that's got to be brutal.
But he sacrificed because he had, with great power comes great responsibility.
I love that scene when they all kind of shared their. I mean, I think one of my favorite parts, and many favorite parts, but one of them was actually the kind of the lull before the final battle where the three Peter Parkers are just kind of chatting each other up, talking about their webbing. It's one of my favorite scenes. I could have gone on for another 10 minutes and I would have loved it.
That was great. Sharing their experiences that are shared, talking about their differences.
Yeah.
Oh, but no, this movie, I can't think of anything that they really could have just done better to wow the audience.
I don't
it was well done.
So emotional. If you want to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, which I sometimes do when I'm not going to do that in this case,
sometimes
I don't think
movies are meant to be enjoyed.
Well, that's the thing. I've said it before. The more you enjoy a movie, the more you don't want to look for the problems, or the more you're like, oh, that's fine. I'm going to gloss that over. And this time, like I said, I'm sure there are issues in this film, but I don't care. It was such a great, just a great experience.
Oh my god, and the fight sequences were amazing.
I mean, even the villains, Doc Ock and the de-aging technology, these look like they were plucked right out of that final moment. I mean, it was
really
incredible.
Did. It was cool.
Yeah, and it was strange to see the old Tobey Maguire. I'm curious what his story is. What has his life been like the last 15, 20 years?
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of tales to tell there.
Jay, we're working it out. It out. Then you have the battle with Doctor Strange. That was so great to have a full-on superhero fighting each other. Brawl. Not trying to kill each other, but both of them, obviously fighting for real. And I love geometry beats magic.
What's more powerful than magic? Math. Yeah.
But no, it was so cool to see the two of them fight because even watching it, I'm watching the fight and I'm going, oh, Doctor Strange has all the advantages. How in the world is Spider-Man going to win this?
Math.
And then you forget that he has a genius brain. And he used that to win, and it was great.
That's speaking of Doctor Strange, that was another because these two characters have kind of they have their interesting relationship, and call me Steven, and so even that had an amazing arc to it, at the end where he kind of says we are going to miss you, or and we love and miss you, and you could just see he meant and he cares about him, and
he does care.
He's going to forget about him too,
and he knows.
Yeah,
and he knows what he's the only one at the moment. When he being asked, how do you deal with being asked that?
I don't know.
To erase me from from everybody's memory to save the world. That's such a tall order.
Yeah, and I mean, just amazing performances all around too.
I mean, Doctor Strange used to be a world-class physician, famous surgeon, and in a sense, he knows what it's like to fade into obscurity, but not to be as though he didn't exist.
Yeah.
I love the little details they put in, just the little details. When Spider-Man, he couldn't get you saw the scene where he got the paint squad, thrown on his suit. The next time he puts on that suit, he puts it on inside out. I mean, I liked at the first time I saw it in the trailer, I was like, oh, cool, new black suit. Nope, it's his suit inside out because he's got paint on it and he couldn't wash it off.
Well, speaking of suits, I liked the final suit we got to see, too.
Oh, yeah.
Very classic looking Spider-Man.
Shiny.
Yes.
Shiny.
Very nice looking Spider-Man suit.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, though, at the very end of the movie, after the spell is cast and they zoom back on the Statue of Liberty, Strange wasn't standing up there anymore.
Did he immediately get
teleported somewhere?
Probably.
And then, of course, they talked about Westfield and WandaVision, because we saw Wanda.
Yes.
Who wasn't off immediately trying to get her children back, which is what I assumed.
Well, I think she was studying. I mean, at the end of WandaVision, we see her kind of learning magic. I think she's prepping for whatever she does next to get her kids back.
She just looks so calm in the trees, snipping flowers.
Well, remember, we also saw that she was, at the end of WandaVision, she was, sipping tea or coffee on the porch while the other part of her was inside studying. So that could be the same kind of deal here.
Same concept. And we saw Doctor Strange using what looked like chaos magic.
Yeah.
That he would have learned from her? Or she would have helped him with?
Perhaps.
Let's just say it now. Mephisto.
Mephisto confirmed. Yes.
Mephisto confirmed.
I'm sure if he wasn't supposed to be in there, they've since gone back and
they're working on something with Mephisto now. They're like, gosh, we got to get him in there because everyone's talking about.
I thought he was coming at WandaVision, but no, I mean, I'll just well, you know, like I said, we're probably not talking about everything we could be talking about. This is more of a gushing review instead of an actual let's dig into the details. But I think it was a fantastic movie. It exceeded the hype.
It did. It did. I like that it took off from the moment too that the last one
ended. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's all we've got for you this time. Now take to the comments below. Tell us, what did you think of No Way Home? Are we crazy? It wasn't that good? Or is it perhaps the greatest superhero movie you've ever seen?
It could be.
I think it is. Whatever the case may be.
Let's not forget about Green Lantern.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Or Catwoman.
How did we forget about those two gems? Yeah, you're right. So this is at least the third behind those two. But anyway, leave your comments below. Tell us what you thought of this film. And until next time, thanks for watching.